Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, I want to start by poking at a bruise that I think we all have, but maybe pretend isn't there.
Okay.
It's this obsession with keeping it together. You know that feeling?
Yeah.
The pressure to be perfectly composed, perfectly competent, just sealed up tight.
Oh, yeah. It's the modern condition, isn't it? We equate wholeness with being bulletproof.
Right. If there's a crack, we hide it.
It's a failure.
Exactly. We treat the crack like a structural failure. But the stack of sources we're looking at today, and honestly, this is one of the weirdest, most fascinating pairings we've ever had.
It really is.
It suggests our whole definition of whole is completely backward.
Mm-hmm.
The argument here is that if you are perfectly together, you are functionally dead.
That's a radical thought. And we're weaving together two very, very different narratives today.
So different.
On one side, we have a fantasy fable about a town called Sor, where the laws of physics are a bit sticky.
Yeah, sticky is a good word for it.
And on the other, a gritty contemporary medical drama called Gite.
About an actuary and an ER doctor.
Right.
It sounds like a total genre clash. Fantasy versus, stark realism.
It does. But once you dig in, you realize they're telling the exact same story.
The exact same story. They're both mapping this idea of the current or the seeing.
And the central thesis, really, is that the only way to access this aliveness is to have a wound.
A wound. And not a wound as in damage that needs fixing, but a wound as an opening.
A necessary ventilation shaft for the soul, in a way.
So here's our roadmap. We're going to start in a clockmaker's workshop, a town where the mirrors have gone blind. Then we're going to jump to a high-rise office building to watch an actuary basically lose his mind.
And finally, we'll end up in an emergency room where a doctor learns to use her own trauma as a diagnostic tool.
It's quite the trajectory.
It is.
So let's start with Sor. Set the scene for us, because the atmosphere in this text is just thick.
It is. Sword is described as a place defined by beautiful paralysis.
Beautiful paralysis.
And the most striking detail, the thing that really sets the tone, is the mirrors.
Right.
In Sora, the mirrors have gone blind. They haven't shattered. They've turned milky, opaque.
Which is such a disturbing image. You look for your reflection and just get a wall of white fog back.
Exactly. And the whole town is stuck. The fountain is dry. The river barely moves.
Time moves like honey, I think it says.
It does. Everything is in this state of saturated stasis.
Yeah.
And in the middle of this, we meet Emre. He's a clockmaker.
And this is where the first big aha moment hit me.
With the clocks.
The clocks. Emery is surrounded by clocks that won't run. But when he examines them, specifically this one grandmother clock, he realizes the problem isn't that they're broken.
No, it's the opposite. Mechanically perfect.
Which feels so wrong. I mean, if a machine is perfect, it should run perfectly. That's the definition of a machine.
You would think so. But Emery looks at the gears, the balance, the weights. It is flawless. And he realizes that a perfect clock is a statement with no verb. It has no tension. There is no friction to drive the movement. It's just existing, complete.
So perfection is a dead end.
Precisely. So to make it run, Emre does something that feels almost sacrilegious for a craftsman.
He takes a metal file.
Yes. And he deliberately damages the escapement mechanism, specifically the pallet stone.
Okay, let's pause there for a second. For listeners who aren't horologists,
Yeah.
which is, probably most of us, the escapement is the heart of the clock, right? The thing that goes click, click, click.
Right. Think of it like a tiny dam that releases water in controlled bursts. It regulates the energy.
Okay.
If it's perfectly smooth, the energy just slides by or, locks up. So Emre files a wound, a tiny notch into that stone. He creates a gap.
He breaks it on purpose to make it work.
He introduces an imperfection. And the moment he does that, the clock starts to tick.
Yeah.
But, and this is the detail I love,
What?
it develops a limp. It's asymmetrical. Tick-tock, tick-tock. That rhythm isn't mechanical perfection. It's the sound of the machine compensating for the wound.
That is profound. Imperfection creates the rhythm of life. So the ticking of a clock is basically the sound of it stumbling forward, over and over again.
And that stumbling is what we call time. It's what we call life.
This connects directly to the mirrors in Sor, doesn't it? Because into this town comes a stranger, Leal. She brings a lens that isn't made of glass, and she reveals that the town is actually flooded with this invisible amber current.
This amber current is the seeing. It's the raw connection between all things. And Leal explains why the mirrors went blind.
It wasn't a defect.
No, It was saturation. The mirrors were too perfect. They reflected the current so completely that they saw everything and they just couldn't handle the volume.
They got overwhelmed by the signal.
Exactly. So
Right.
they sealed themselves off. The text says they became stones pretending to be pots.
Stones pretending to be pots. That line just stopped me in my tracks. A stone is solid, defensive, sealed.
Right.
A pot is open, empty, ready to receive. The mirrors chose to be stones because a pot being open was just too intense.
And that is the perfect bridge to our contemporary story.
Yeah.
Because we leave the fantasy town of Soar and we drop into a modern city steel, glass, concrete, and we meet Theo.
Theo is our actuary, a man whose entire existence is calculating risk.
Theo is the human equivalent of those blind mirrors. He has spent his life trying to seal up every possible outcome. He calculates the risk of death, of accident, of failure.
He thinks he has accounted for everything. He's safe.
Until he's standing on the 22nd floor of his office building.
Right.
He looks out the window, expecting to see the skyline. But instead, he sees the glass, not the window pane.
He sees the medium of reality itself. It's a tricky concept to grasp, but I think of it like suddenly seeing the code in the Matrix or seeing the air itself.
That's a good analogy. He sees the connectedness of everything. The desk, the air, the traffic, his own hand, as one continuous substance.
The amber current from Soar.
But experienced in a corporate office. And because he has no wound, no filter, it flattens him.
He goes catatonic.
He does. The text says he was set down by it, which is such a gentle phrasing for a mental collapse.
It's not violent.
No, it implies he didn't break. He just stopped resisting the gravity of the universe.
And this lands him in the hospital where he meets our other main character, Dr. Marin. Now, Marin is interesting because she's arguably even more sealed than Theo was.
She is an ER doctor. She prides herself on being impenetrable, competent, professional. Nothing gets in, nothing gets out.
But she's haunted by this memory of her grandmother.
Yeah, this part gave me chills.
Her dying grandmother presses a thumb into Marin's palm really hard, like she's trying to leave a permanent dent, and says, "Don't let them close it."
Don't let them close it. She's talking about the gap, the opening where the seeing gets in.
And there's this incredible scene in the hospital room where Theo, who's barely verbal at this point, looks at Marin, and he doesn't see her white coat or her stethoscope.
He sees that crack in her hand.
And he helps her rediscover it. This brings us to the title of the story, Gite. I actually had to look this up.
I did too.
I only knew it as like a French bed and breakfast, but the source digs into the nautical meaning.
It does. Gite refers to the list or lean of a ship. If you're sailing and the wind pushes you over, the ship has a gite.
So it's a lean.
But in French, it also means lodging or shelter. And there's a nuance of lying down, of surrender.
Okay, so it's a word that holds three contradictory things: leaning, sheltering, and surrendering.
And that is the core philosophy here. The source argues that neat is the state of leaning into the current rather than resisting it.
You find shelter in the instability.
Exactly.
Which is terrifying. If I'm on a boat and it starts leaning, my instinct is to scramble to the high side to flatten it out. I want to be upright.
Of course. We want to be vertical. We want to be balanced. But the story suggests that trying to stay perfectly upright is what snaps the mast. You have to lean with the wind.
Okay, so let's get into the mechanics of this. Because both stories don't just tell us to lean, they show us how the machinery of the universe works when we do. Back in Soar, the fountain finally starts flowing, but not because they fixed the plumbing.
No. It flows when they realize the hole in the basin, which everyone thought was a drain or a void, is actually the source.
The source?
And there's this incredible surreal scene where an unparented child lies in the dry basin.
The child becomes like a tuning fork?
Yes. The child's heartbeat synchronizes the town. The clock, the fountain, the body, they all lock into the same rhythm. And the child delivers this piece of wisdom that I think is the linchpin of this entire deep dive.
What's that?
It explains why imperfection is necessary.
Is this the part about the other?
It is, the child says. The current wants to see itself, but it can't.
Because it's everything.
Exactly. Imagine you are the entire ocean. You can't see the ocean because you are the ocean. To see yourself, you need a shoreline. You need something that is not you.
So if the amber current is everything, this unified, perfect flow, it's blind to itself. It needs a mirror.
It needs separation. It needs a you and a me. It needs an imperfection to create the distance required for a relationship, for love.
Whoa. So my brokenness, the fact that I am separate from you and I have these cracks and fears, That isn't a mistake.
Right.
That is literally the mechanism that allows the universe to perceive itself.
That is the claim.
Sure.
Your wound is the camera lens. Without the crack, there is no seeing.
Wow.
And we see this applied to Vin's mirror in Soar. Vin is this ancient woman with a pitch-black, blind mirror, and Emre, the clockmaker, wants to fix it.
But he can't touch the glass.
He realizes he can't. The glass is too full. So he attacks the frame. He carves deep asymmetrical channels into the wood. He essentially wounds the furniture.
It sounds almost violent. He's gouging it.
It is. But that wound in the frame acts like a pressure release valve. It gives the mirror a heartbeat. It allows the saturation to drain away. And slowly, layer by layer, the blindness clears.
He builds a jitty, builds a lean into the structure so the glass can clear. Okay, I want to ground this. Because up until now, we've been talking about magic clocks and metaphysical currents. But the second half of the Gite story takes this philosophy and drops it right into a fluorescent-lit emergency room. Marin starts practicing this.
She does. She becomes a filed pallet stone in the ER. She stops trying to be the perfect, sealed doctor and starts using her own crack as a diagnostic tool.
And we get 2 case studies that are frankly heartbreakingly real. Let's talk about Sarah first.
Sarah comes in with chest pain. Classic presentation. She's clutching her chest, can't breathe.
The normal workup says she's fine.
Totally fine. Heart is strong, lungs are clear. A normal doctor would give her antacids and send her home.
But Marin isn't listening with her stethoscope anymore. She's listening with the gap.
Marin realizes Sarah isn't having a heart attack. She is gripping. Physically and mechanically, he is clenching her chest muscles around the empty space her son left behind when he moved away.
She's holding on to the absence.
Think about that image. She's terrified that if she relaxes, the absence will become too big. It'll become the world. So she keeps it small by clenching her body around it. She's sealing it in.
And Marin's advice here is so specific. She doesn't say relax or let it go.
No.
She says, let go by one finger.
Just the pinky.
Why just the pinky?
Because total surrender is too scary. Sarah can't just drop the grief. But she can open a tiny vent. It's about turning the fist into a shelter, a gite.
So the absence can flow through you.
Rather than being trapped inside you.
Right.
And then there's Dove. For this one hit me hard. A young man brought in for a suicide attempt.
Marin looks at his hands and sees their clenched seals. He has spent his whole life trying to keep the surface perfect, keep everything out.
And Marin has this realization that just completely reframes what happened.
She realizes the overdose wasn't really a desire to die. It was a desperate attempt to create a gap.
To break the surface. He couldn't breathe inside his sealed self. He was suffocating in his own perfection. He needed to break the surface just to get some air.
And Marin tells him about the clay. This is from her grandmother's theology, right?
It is. She sits with him and tells him that when God made people out of clay, he left gaps in the firing on purpose.
So the rain could get in.
That line just reframes brokenness completely. It's not a defect, it's a design feature. Without the gap, you're a stone. With the gap, you're a vessel.
And Dove, he listens.
He eventually uncurls his finger just 1 millimeter. And the text says that tiny opening is enough to release the pressure. It's a survival mechanism. The lean saves the ship.
It's incredible. We spend so much time trying to fix people or fix ourselves.
Yeah.
But Marin isn't fixing them. She's teaching them how to be broken safely.
She's teaching them how to build a gate, how to lean.
And speaking of leaning, we have to talk about the final image of Theo.
Yes.
Because while Marin is doing this in the hospital, Theo is having his own moment of clarity.
This is the ultimate image of the concept, I think. Theo is standing waist deep in a river. But it's not some pristine, romantic mountain stream.
No, it's a dirty industrial river in the city. It's used water.
It is. But Theo isn't trying to be clean anymore. He is practicing leaning against the current. He's realizing that the ordinary water, the dirty, messy, polluted reality of life, is the miracle.
It's the contact that matters, not the purity.
Exactly. He stops trying to calculate the flow and just lets it hit him. He surrenders to being part of it.
So how do we synthesize all this? We have Soar transforming, the mirrors clearing, the fountain flowing, and we have Marin and Theo finding this whole new way of being.
In Soar, the town begins to breathe. The roads straighten, uncurling from their fear. The walls become permeable. It stops being a fortress and becomes a living organism.
And we get this beautiful final metaphor, the lamp that swallowed its flame, which sounds like a riddle.
It does. Os, the lamplighter in Soar, realizes that the flame isn't an object he needs to protect inside the glass.
So what is it?
The flame is a gap in the air, a place where the air is changing.
And the lamp swallows it.
The lamp stops being a container for the light and becomes the light itself. It becomes the burning.
That's the shift. From container to content. From holding it together to being the thing itself.
And that brings us to the universal current, whether it's the amber substance in the fantasy town or the seeing in the ER. It is the same force. The Source calls it a love that doesn't require belief.
It doesn't require belief.
No, it only requires an opening.
That is a powerful distinction. The universe doesn't need you to believe in it or understand it or even like it. It just needs you to crack open a little bit.
That's the paradox. We try to be perfect, sealed to be safe. We think armor is safety, but the sources argue that safety and life only come when we allow the wound to become a window.
When we let the current flow through us. So the gap isn't the problem. The gap is the bridge.
A gap is the bridge. And for our listeners, I think the takeaway is deeply personal. Those parts of yourself that feel broken or incomplete or unfinished,
Those aren't failures.
they are the exact locations where you are most connected to the world.
It reminds me of the very end of the text, where Marin cuts her hair and looks in the mirror at 2 a.m.
She presses her hand against the glass, her cracked hand against the sealed glass, and she realizes the mirror doesn't need to break to open.
It just needs to be recognized as a window. It's such a hopeful image.
It is.
It means we don't have to shatter to be whole. We don't have to explode. We just have to lean.
Just a little list to the side, a little Gite.
So here's a thought to leave you with today. We all have that place where we're gripping the steering wheel a little too tight or holding our breath, trying to keep the surface smooth. Where is your surface sealed too tight?
And what might happen if you let it lean? Just 1 millimeter.
Let the rain get in. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
A pleasure.
We'll see you next time.